it's Liberty and I make videos about books, history, archaeology and life. And I'm in front of my Christmas tree because it is mid-December. And yes, it is colour-coded, going from purple to blue to pink to red to orange. That's just how I am. As of now, I have finished 44 books this year, well on my way to my 45 reading goal that I set at the beginning of this year. I might see if I can do 50 because I'm reading quite a few books at the moment. But today I am going through all my 5-star reads that I read this year in 2020, and I'm not including rereads because that would just be too long and it would be Le Carré, and I'm really upset about his death. So I'm going to be splitting this up into sections: fiction, fantasy, non-fiction, and there's like one YA book in there. If you want to skip to a specific genre, I'll put the timestamps in the description. If you enjoy my recommendations, do give this video a like and subscribe if you want more videos from me. Anyway, I'm just going to shut up and get straight into my 5-star reads from 2020. So I'm starting with fiction, and my first 5-star read is The Binding by Bridget Collins. Last time I made a video, I recommended this book and I was halfway through it, and now I'm finished it, and oh my god, it gave me the biggest book hangover. I haven't finished a book since then. It's been like a month, I think, or 3 weeks, I don't know. Emmett Farmer is the main character of this novel, and he leaves his family to become an apprentice bookbinder, where essentially they do more than just bind physical books. They bind memories into these books. And so they sort of take away people's memories. People come to them and want to forget things. His teacher, Meredith, instills in him a very strong sense of moral responsibility of when to use his gifts. He unfortunately meets some other bookbinders who aren't as scrupulous in how they offer their services. I loved all the characters that you're supposed to love, obviously. I was so invested in the romance in this book. I just completely fell head over heels. I love magical realism and historical fiction. Put that together, it just ticked so many boxes for me. My next 5-star read is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I read this as part of the Gilmore Girls readathon earlier in the autumn, and I fell in love with Mary Shelley's writing style so much. So as most people will know, it's about Dr. Frankenstein, and he is obsessed with science and alchemy and older forms of scientific theory, and he basically creates a monster and has to deal with the consequences. The 19th century is often seen as, golden age of scientific discovery. So many things were happening in the 19th century. And so it's really fascinating to see the same discussions then and now in terms of what is too much, when do we stop in terms of sort of discovering things, experimenting on things. Mary Shelley's writing is just beautiful. Her prose is beautiful. The way she talks about the nature of humanity, science, just the way that she writes these characters and their friendships and the romance, it's just, beautiful. I honestly think Frankenstein is just essential reading for everybody. My third 5-star read of the year is The World of Jeeves by P.G. Wodehouse. Now, this is a real fat book of all short stories, featuring the aristocratic Bertie Wooster and his valet Jeeves. Essentially, Bertie and his friends get into all sorts of scrapes, and Jeeves uses his brain to get them out of it. P.G. Wodehouse is just a very, very funny man. He knows how to write comedy, physical comedy, witty banter. These stories have it all. It was perfect for when I needed a lift during 2020, which was a lot as I finished it midway through the year. My final fiction 5-star read is Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. It is a contemporary fiction novel about a 25-year-old woman, Queenie, who is Jamaican British, and she is living in London. She is sort of like straddling two worlds in a way, because she works at a newspaper which is predominantly white, and she's really struggling to get them to care about racial issues. And then she has her Jamaican heritage and her family, and she feels like she's not neatly fitting into either world, and she's really struggling with that. In addition, she's just been through a breakup, and so there's all of the issues that come through that, and it's it's very, very, very good. It's such a relatable read for anyone who's in their 20s or struggles with multiple cultures in their heritage, or is living in London and is stuck in a rent trap, essentially. There's something for everyone to relate to in here. Queenie's one of the best books that I've read this year, hands down. So my first fantasy 5-star read is Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. Now, this is the third and final book in the Farseer trilogy, and it's all about Fitz, and Fitz is the illegitimate son of the old king in waiting, essentially like our Prince of Wales, and he was taken from his mother at a young age to be brought up in the castle in the capital and be taught how to be an assassin. The third book sees Fitz set out on a quest to support his uncle Verity and to find a way to stop the raiders who raid their shores. He's doing this while trying to outsmart his other uncle, who is cunning and ambitious and wants to be the king. The world is amazing, the characters are amazing, the magic systems are brilliant. There's just so much to love about this trilogy. If you love fantasy or want to get into fantasy, Robin Hobb is a must read, and this trilogy is a must read. My next fantasy book is another finale to a trilogy, and it is literally called Finale, and it is the third book in the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber. Now, I've spoken a lot about this trilogy in various videos, so I'm only going to say a little bit, which is Caraval is the first book in the series, and it is a magical circus game, and essentially sisters Scarlet and Tella are thrown into this world. Now, the game is headed by Ringmaster Legend and his acting troupe. Now, the second and third books are a more expanded world, the stakes are higher, there are these tarot cards with magical beings trapped inside them. It is a holistic sensory explosion. You're so immersed in this world with all of your senses, and it's a great read in terms of the plot, but also the characters are good, intriguing. There are some morally grey characters, which we love. It completely draws you in. Fully recommend it. And my final fantasy novel is the second in a duology. I finished a lot of series this year that I loved. So it is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo, and it's the second book in the Six of Crows duology. Now, the first book in the series is the six misfits come together to pull off a heist, and Crooked Kingdom is a result of the success or failure of said heist. Again, I've spoken a fair bit about this in my favourite fantasy series video, so I'm not going to say too much. All the characters are interesting, intriguing. There are people that you can ship in this novel, in this series, I should say, in the duology. The magic system is great. It's the Grisha trilogy is also set in the same universe. I don't believe you have to have read the Grisha trilogy, but it does take place after the events in Grisha, so if you want to, I'm not too fussed. And some of the characters are in the same gang, so you get a lot of the sort of underworld of the main city where all the action takes place, as well as the sort of other aspects of the city. And I'm going to talk about the one YA book now that I've got on my 5-star list. Now, it is The Disappearances by Emily Bain Murphy. It's set in the town of Stirling, which is somewhere in America, and during the Second World War. And every 7 years in Stirling, something goes missing. And we're not talking about objects, we are talking about stars in the sky, the ability to taste, things like that, and it affects all the people who live in the town. Isla and her brother move to the town to live with friends because their father goes off to fight, and they have to sort of wrestle with the idea that maybe their mother had something to do with the disappearances first happening, and they have to try and stop them because as they are living there, something else disappears. It's such an original concept. I really enjoyed it, and the characters were great. Again, it is YA, but I was 25 when I read it, massively enjoyed it. Don't see an issue with reading YA as an adult. It was very engaging. I didn't want to put it down, so. On to my non-fiction reads. So my first non-fiction 5-star read was A House Full of Daughters by Juliet Nicholson. It is all about Juliet's family, and it features a woman from each generation. Her grandmother was Vita Sackville-West, who was a very famous author and gardener and member of the Bloomsbury Group. It goes a couple of generations before Vita to Vita's grandmother, who was a very famous dancer in Spain. She came from a poor family and ended up having the illegitimate children of Lionel Sackville-West, who's the second Baron Sackville. As well as being about people, it's also a lot about places. You know, the place that Pepita, who is Vita's grandmother, raised her children, and to the more grand houses in England. I found Vita's chapters fascinating because I visited Sissinghurst, which is the house that she lived in with her husband, many times in my life, probably about once a year, something like that, since I was young. And so I feel quite attached to it as a place, and therefore her as a person by proxy. Also, her life seems to be one big identity crisis, which I feel like I can definitely relate to. Vita has a very special place in my heart. Also, I expect, if anyone is interested in the Enneagram, I suspect that she is a 4, like me, on the Enneagram, and I feel like that's what drew her to Virginia Woolf, who is also a 4. So, you know, fools all round. So my final 5-star read of the year, we're going from Vita Sackville-West to one of her lovers, Virginia Woolf. And it was A Room of One's Own that I gave 5 stars to. Now, A Room of One's Own is an expansion of an essay that Virginia Woolf gave. And it's all about women and writing and education. I love her non-fiction prose style. She makes her point so eloquently, but with so much humour and style. I'm trying to read more essay style things, and all of her output is going to be at the top of my list. And obviously, because it's started as a lecture, it's meant to be engaging. There are so many personal anecdotes that she includes in there as well. I just loved it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed all my 5-star reads from 2020. If you had a good time, drop a like and maybe subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. I mean, I highly recommend, just read all of these books, they're great. So I have nothing left to say but season's greetings and happy reading.